Good morning. Welcome to the 10th annual Maryland Early Childhood Conference. We are so glad, thank you. We are so glad you are here. How many people have been here all 10 years? I was going to say, I thought Carolyn had been. Thank you. I have also been here all 10 years. I'm not old, so that doesn't work. It does have some perks, doesn't it? Well, welcome. We are very glad everyone is here. For those of you who are going to be here tomorrow, just a quick weather advisory, right? In case you haven't heard, there's going to be a tropical storm here tomorrow, so dress accordingly. Bring your umbrellas. We do not have umbrellas. And it's only going to be 64 degrees, so just saying. Probably. The good news for today is that all of your sessions are in this building today. You will not be so lucky tomorrow. Lunch, sorry, just, I will not lie to you, okay? Lunch is in the Student Center, as always. And very, very important. I see everyone has their green sheets, right? If you do not turn in your green sheet or whatever color the sheet is after your respective sessions, you don't get a certificate. So please fill those out. And aside from being a requirement, it really does help inform our decisions for future conferences and speakers and topics that you all would like to see. So if you would please do that, there will be volunteers around to collect them, so please fill them out. Also, we have the vendors, again, over in the Student Center. You should have a scavenger hunt card. Very important if you go and get your stamps at every vendor. Of course, we might do something at the end of the day. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what the day brings. All right, housekeeping? That's all my notes. Okay. Does everybody have an assessment form? If not, okay. All right, so we have just an action-packed day today. And of course, we always start with, well, housekeeping, and then our opening remarks. We have a special guest this morning who has very graciously driven up from Baltimore to be here, and that is Dr. Shana Cook, who, as I'm sure you know, is the Assistant Superintendent for Early Learning with MSDE. Dr. Cook most recently served as the Director of the Early Childhood Systems at the Bynum Family Foundation, where she supported the development and implementation of their programmatic level strategy by translating lessons learned from early childhood education field to effective knowledge building, practice, and policies. In addition, Dr. Cook recently served as the Senior Advisor of the Office of Early Childhood Development, Administration for Children and Families in the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. She served in this capacity through the intergovernmental, she also has English, which I'm apparently lacking today, Intergovernmental Personal Act Program. Prior to these roles, she served as a policy analyst for New America, where she focused on the early childhood education workforce, learning technologies, family engagement, mental health, and school discipline practices. Dr. Cook has also served as a summer policy fellow at 0 to 3. So really unqualified. I'm really sorry to have to bring her up here. She actually began her career as an early childhood educator and has taught third grade, Head Start, and pre-kindergarten in the District of Columbia Public Schools. Dr. Cook served as a grade level chair in the District of Columbia Public Schools and managed quality assurance for Head Start classrooms. She also taught pre-K at an early childhood development center in Gaithersburg. She received her doctorate in education policy and leadership from American University and holds a Master of Education from American University, as well as a Bachelor of Arts in Classics with, and here we are, the minor in English from Howard University. It is my great pleasure to introduce Dr. Shana Cook.
Thank you so much, Terry. I appreciate the introduction. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Oh, that was great. So as Terry said, I'm Shana Cook. I'm the Assistant State Superintendent for the Division of Early Childhood at the Maryland State Department of Education. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to share some of the achievements we have made together and the plans we have for moving the early childhood community forward. First, I'll talk about the blueprint for Maryland's future and the Maryland State Department of Education strategic plan. The blueprint's vision is to increase the number of 3- and 4-year-old children served in high-quality, full-day pre-kindergarten programs by increasing the capacity of both private provider or community-based programs and school-based programs. The blueprint is also focused on expanding access to and the quality of Judy and Patty Centers, which provide family support services and opportunities for children to participate in high-quality learning environments to prepare them for kindergarten. We will achieve this mission and vision through a mixed delivery system that will strengthen family choice and ensure that both private providers or community-based programs and school-based programs are working together to support kindergarten readiness for all of Maryland's children, including children with disabilities, children experiencing homelessness, and children who speak a home language other than English. No matter the setting a family chooses, our goal is to promote high-quality early learning experiences. We can do this when we support a highly skilled early childhood workforce in both private provider and school-based settings. But what is a mixed delivery system? A mixed delivery system is a model that co-delivers high-quality pre-kindergarten in both private provider or community-based programs and school-based settings in order to allow families to choose the pre-K program that is the best fit for their 3- and 4-year-old children. Local education agencies are charged with developing strong partnerships with private providers to achieve this vision. Some private providers are already receiving pre-K grants, and those include child care centers, family child care homes, Head Start programs, Montessori programs, faith-based programs, private schools, and public charter schools, as well as colleges and universities with early learning centers. A part of the mixed delivery system is also supporting infant and toddler care through cost modeling that spans all programs. Cost modeling will also help us improve the reimbursement rate so that it is truly reflective of the cost of care. We aren't just focused on expanding programs, but we're also focused on improving quality. And we can do that when we ensure that we're reimbursing child care at the true cost of care. More than $35 million was allocated for pre-K programs across the mixed delivery system through the Pre-K Expansion Grant and the Maryland State Pre-Kindergarten Grant. Through both of these grant programs, a total of 13 local education agencies received funding for 1 or more additional pre-kindergarten classrooms. In addition, 40 private providers, including child care centers, family child care home, Head Start programs, and other programs across the state have been awarded grant funds. Collectively, the private and public pre-kindergarten programs will create 2,731 new pre-kindergarten seats and will provide 3- and 4-year-old children from low-income families access to full-day pre-kindergarten. And up to $10 million of the funding has been allocated to a new grant called the Pre-K Capacity Building Grant. This grant will provide for support for local education agencies who may be serving 3- and 4-year-olds, or they might be serving 3-year-olds for the first time, as many of you know, or they are transitioning from half-day to full-day programs. The technical assistance under this grant will support them with that transition, making sure that children receive developmentally appropriate practices. This grant will also support private providers or community-based programs by providing technical assistance to help move programs to higher Maryland Excels ratings or support staff with enrollment to credential or certification programs. In addition, MSDE is developing new early learning standards, and I'm really excited about this because our state standards have not been updated in about over a decade, more than a decade now. The standards cover all the major domains, including social and emotional development, approaches to learning, language and literacy, early cognition and STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, well-being, physical well-being, and motor development. These early learning standards are also in these early learning standards, there's also an emphasis on self-regulation and higher order play. There are both child and teacher examples that are culturally responsive, and we also made sure that examples were inclusive of all program settings, inclusive of family child care and center-based and school-based programs. There are call-outs for specific populations of students, which include children experiencing homelessness, children who speak a home language other than English, and children with disabilities. In addition, MSDE has grants that support infant and early childhood mental health consultation, and will be releasing a grant to promote positive outcomes for infants and toddlers. A new initiative that the Division of Early Childhood is working on is called Push to Pre-K. The initiative will provide direction and assistance for child care programs interested in submitting pre-kindergarten expansion grant proposals for the first time in FY25. Our goal is to provide as much assistance as possible to programs that want to serve pre-K children using state-funded dollars. There will be scheduled technical assistance sessions and dedicated resources on our website that will include coverage of licensing requirements, better details around how to support staff in becoming qualified for this program, also meeting Excels requirements, which include helping programs enroll in Maryland Excels, increasing the rating to at least a level 3, and supporting programs by helping them to partner with their quality assurance specialists. In addition, the Push to Pre-K will provide technical assistance for grant writing, and this is something that we're really committed to across all of our grants. We want to expand the number of programs and expand the 10 of people who are receiving state funds. And while we can assist programs in writing their grant proposals, the division wants to be a resource and share resources on grant writing. We found that many programs need support with grant writing, and our goal is to help remove the barrier to receiving funds. Now I'll transition to talking about the Child Care Scholarship Program. Our goal is to provide educators and families with excellent customer service. We aren't there yet, but that is the expectation that we're striving for each day. We have made many policy changes to the Child Care Scholarship Program to continue to support children, families, and educators. In May of 2022, MSDE removed the eligibility requirement of having a child support order or pursuing child support from applicants for the Child Care Scholarship Program. And in April 2023, MSDE stopped including child support income in the income calculation. All child support matters were removed completely from the Child Care Scholarship Program. MSDE, in partnership with the General Assembly, also made some additional policy changes. In May 2022, the maximum co-payment in the Child Care Scholarship Program was changed to $3. However, most families pay $0 in co-payments at this time. MSDE also implemented a new fast-track child care scholarship application process. In July 2023, the new fast-track application process shortens applicant wait time to 3 business days to receive a scholarship. Last year, the average wait time was more than 30 days. So this change has been helping. Eligible families who apply through the fast-track application receive 60 days of child care assistance while they wait for their 52-week child care scholarship after if they are determined to be eligible for the program. In spring 2023, MSDE launched the Family Portal. The Family Portal is a one-stop digital platform for the Child Care Scholarship Program. The portal provides an efficient online system that allows families to check their eligibility, complete the application, upload documents, check on their application status, and receive messages and text message alerts. They're also able to receive personalized support and access their benefits. Finally, MSDE implemented advance payment. The Administration for Children and Families at the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services is also pushing all states to move towards providing advance payment based on enrollment. Due to advance payment, MSDE pays providers in advance, not retroactively. MSDE issues the advance payment based on enrollment, where enrollment is defined as the number of students with active scholarships assigned to a given provider at the end of the previous calendar month. MSDE pays providers in advance based on enrollment each month, and MSDE processes 2 payments each month, one on the 1st and one on the 15th. MSDE is in the process of conducting user testing for the Child Care Provider Portal. This portal will launch in the coming months and will enable providers to manage their licenses, view their invoices, and receipt child care scholarships. Now I'll transition to talking about the Maryland Excels program. I'm really excited about some of the changes we've made. MSDE has significantly increased bonuses across the board, especially for family child care. Bonuses begin at $1,000 for all program types, and bonuses increase as programs move up in the ratings. At level 5, family child care providers receive a $4,300 bonus. Large family child care homes receive a $4,500 bonus, and child care center bonuses range from $4,500 to $13,500 based on size. Now I'll discuss licensing. All regional offices are fully staffed. We're very excited about this. We fully staff them. And MSDE has heard feedback from the field. We've hired a licensing training coordinator to help standardize processes and procedures across all of the regional offices. That is her sole job, and she has started already and is very enthusiastic about ensuring that all processes are the same across the regional offices. I also want to share with you some important regulations that are going through the promulgation process. The first regulation that I'm excited to share with you is related to the individual taxpayer ID number. The ITIN can be used to license or register a child care program in lieu of a Social Security number. The ITIN can also be used to access the Maryland Child Care Credential Program. The use of the ITIN will help expand the number of licensed and registered child care programs by being inclusive of newcomers, refugees, and immigrants in Maryland. We are eager to increase the number of providers who are reflective of the children and families they serve. In addition, through recent legislation, MSDE has started a work group in August for outdoor, nature-based early care and education programs. The goal of this work group is to discuss priority items and help to inform the development of regulations for outdoor early learning programs. And we hope to bring those proposed regulations to the Maryland State Board of Education to begin that process of creating a whole new license that will be focused on outdoor programs. I would be remiss if I did not discuss the early childhood workforce shortage, which impacts Maryland and states across the country. MSDE implemented the Maryland Rebuilds grants by investing $23 million to focus on growing a highly effective workforce, expanding access to quality childcare, boosting family childcare, expanding mental health supports and services, and also highlighting early learning models of success. We are currently working with the Maryland Department of Labor to register all apprenticeship programs that have started from the Maryland Rebuilds grants to ensure that these programs continue to have access to stable funding streams after the Maryland Rebuilds grants end. To support the mixed delivery system and stabilize the child care workforce, MSDE has programs that help to remove barriers and financial stress for child care educators. We have partnered with the Council for Professional Recognition and the Maryland Family Network to offer funding to help early childhood educators earn or renew their Child Development Associate credential. The fully funded CDA training is now available for Maryland early childhood educators. So you don't have to apply to multiple grants to access and get your CDA. So we're very excited about that. We continue to provide the Child Care Career and Professional Development Fund. The fund is a tuition assistance program for child care providers to obtain a college education from participating colleges and universities. We cover expenses for associate's degrees all the way up through a master's degree. MSDE seeks to further stabilize the child care workforce and reduce turnover by using the American Rescue Plan Act funds in a way to support educators. For instance, you may have seen emails from us. We recently launched the Enhanced Child Care Support and Retention Award program, also known as EXTRA, which seeks to document if and how larger bonuses and compensation can improve job satisfaction and stability in Maryland's child care workforce. MSDE hopes to use the results of this study to continue to push for higher compensation and access to benefits for the early care and education workforce. Please continue to provide high-quality comprehensive services and programs for Maryland's children and families. Thank you all for the important work that you do and the essential work that you do to supporting children and families every day in Maryland. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today, and thank you for listening and hearing all the great things that Maryland's doing. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Cook. It was a pleasure having you, and thank you for all that valuable information that you shared. Next up, we're going to have our keynote, Dr. Paul McGhee. Dr. McGhee is a developmental psychologist with a special interest in early childhood. He is internationally known for his research on humor and was a pioneer in conducting basic research on children's humor. He's written 15 books on humor, and 5 of these were on children's humor, including understanding and promoting the development of young children's humor. And if you're interested in that book, he's going to be in our exhibitor area later today, and he's got some of those copies at a special conference price for us. He's spoken at early childhood education and child care conferences across the U.S., as well as Canada, Australia, Singapore, and Germany. His main focus in this keynote presentation is on the importance of keeping your sense of humor in work as early childhood educators. The first sign that Paul was meant to do this kind of work came from his second grade teacher, who wrote on his report card, "Paul plays too much." And he still has that report card today. Please welcome Dr. Paul McGhee.
Thank you, Heather. I'm delighted to be here. But I really should, by the way, I'm really impressed with everything Dr. Cook said. You guys are lucky. You live in Maryland. You know what, everyone's going to be wanting to move to Maryland now. So that's exciting. But I should explain how I happened to be invited. You know, Heather hasn't told you the whole story. You know, when Heather and her co-chair, you know, were putting this conference together, they decided they wanted to kick things off by drawing special attention to the fact that if you want to provide quality education to kids day after day after day, especially with what you've been through in the last 2 or 3 years, you've got to keep your sense of humor, right? So she would get the funniest person she knew. Heather knew just who to call. She got on the phone, called that person up, who said, I'd love to come, but I'm sorry, I'm busy on the 22nd. So she decided, well, all right, we can't get the funniest person. Let's get the person who's more knowledgeable than anyone else about how your sense of humor helps you cope with the tough days, be effective in doing what you're really committed to doing. Again, she knew just who to call. She called that person up and said, I'd love to come, but I'm sorry, I'm busy that day. So finally she called me up, said, Paul, can you help us? Can you come and open our conference this year? So I thought to myself, how can I say no to her 3 times in a row? Now, of course, I made that up. But I did notice, especially over in the registration area, some of you giving me this strange look like you're thinking, wait a minute, I know that guy. So the answer, is no. I was not in the movie. What's the movie? Back to the Future. See, some of you were thinking about it. So I am not crazy Doc Brown, but in fact, I do want to show you how your sense of humor can give you a future with less stress in it. I know you guys have been through the ringer in the last 3 years, you know, with COVID. And so the whole mission here is to show you that your sense of humor is a powerful tool in really being effective doing what you are committing, what you're committed to doing day after day. I mean, I'm glad to see payment is sort of escalating. By the way, you know, after COVID, especially in the context of child care, but also early childhood education, there's more respect. Remember the term, what was the term? Necessary, it was essential providers, you know, essential, that was the concept. So now you're getting more recognition, so that's a sad circumstance we've been dealing with, but that's one of the byproducts of that. You know better than anyone, kids are a great source of joy in our lives, everyday lives, but they can also be a source of stress when they have their bad day, or you've had your own bad day for other reasons, and you walk in, you know, and you think they don't realize you had a tough moment or so coming in here. But the whole focus here, for me in the keynote, you know, is really that your sense of humor is a powerful tool in sort of making the work you do day after day more enjoyable, and especially giving you the resilience, the coping side of it, the emotional resilience you need to be effective day after day. And so what I want to do is just spend like 15 or 20 minutes just with some slides that sort of, it has impact, and I think you'll remember it better. But don't worry, we'll get into some fun stuff after that. So if we can go ahead and put these lights down now. Ron, is it Ron back there? Ron. Yeah. So I want to just spend a little bit of, here's the reminder of everything. I'll try to not be in your way over here. So these are some of the issues you guys have had to deal with, just some of them. You know, preparing and planning, social distancing, you remember all those issues that were going on, screening kids, keeping the mask on, yeah. And so that was not easy, you know, and some of you were not working during this time, right? And others may have been, but it was a difficult ordeal for all of us. And so these were clearly the issues that were the big issues. There really was a threat to life and health on a very large-scale basis for you, for kids, and distancing challenges, especially in childcare. You know, there are people with childcare centers, family childcare, they're just shutting down. You know, they're not operating. So there's a real loss of income, and there's the essential provider issue, and so people finally realize that being a childcare provider is essential because people can't go to work unless you have adequate childcare. So that's unfortunate that it happened this way, but that's sort of on a national basis created some more respect, you know, for both the childcare and the early childhood education side of this. And there's the word essential workers that I was looking for. And that wasn't, I mean, is that your experience? It was not viewed as essential providers prior to that? So it's definite. Remember how nurses, you know, came up first. Remember all the images we saw in New York, you know, where the initial assault was, and there was people banging, respecting, you know, appreciating nurses banging cans, you know, on the streets, you know, on a daily basis. So now childcare has been elevated, maybe not to the same extent, you know, as for nurses, but so that's, in my view, a wonderful thing. So in terms of from this point onwards, and so Dr. Cook, I was just talking to her, you know, briefly beforehand, you know, said, well, I'm wondering, you know, these new variants going around, and so especially in the context of coming to a setting like this, you know, should I be wearing a mask or not? You know, so we're all going to be having that issue in the back of our minds now as we work with young children as well. So there's a lot of stuff here. At the top, you know, I'm a developmental psychologist, so this is my main focus. But I've also done like a few presentations for caregivers, for adults, you know, like maybe whose spouse or parent has dementia. And there's a general rule of thumb that they all have, and that is take good care of yourself first, because it's not easy, the ordeals, especially with someone you're living with dementia and it's a loved one day after day. So it takes a toll on you emotionally. And so it's the reason for this math. What is it they always tell you when you're do I have a pointer on here? Hey, Ron, do I have a pointer? Red button. Red button. Does anyone see a red button on here? Oh, wait, I apologize. There is a little red button hidden. It's a little teeny red sliver. So, yeah, oh, there it is. All right, so the reason, where do we see this? In airplanes. Why do they tell you always, if you're traveling with children or someone who's not capable of put your own mask on first, so you can be able to take care of the child. And so it's the same thing, in my view, with what you do. If you're an early childhood educator or a child care provider, you've got to have tools for managing your own mood and frame of mind, taking care of yourself, you know, emotionally. Again, hopefully the pay scale is escalating a little bit, but most of you are not in this for the money, right? No. So you're doing it because of your commitment. So it's really a lot on the line in terms of taking control of your ability to be in the frame of mind you want to be. That's really what we're about here. So I don't need to read all of that. And so that's our main focus here, is the role of humor. I don't know if that was a reminder to me, a credit card commercial. This must have been 10 or 15 years ago. There was I think it was an American Express credit card. I don't remember the ad, but the punchline was sort of, don't leave home without it. I think that's what you need to do with your sense of humor. You're going to need it some days more than others. But when does your sense of humor abandon you? Right when you need it the most, right? When things are heading south in your room. So we'll focus in men here. There's always opportunities. If you're working with young children, things they're doing or saying, they may not be trying to be funny, but from your point of view, you know, it can be funny. And so that's going to be a focus here in terms of how that helps you manage your mood. And so if you're interested in learning about this part of it, not the children's part, and I do have some copies of this book. It talks about the research on how it's readable, but it's all substantive based on research on how humor helps you manage your mood, gives you emotional resilience. There's also a chapter on physical health and wellness. We won't talk about that, but there's more going on there than you would guess. There's, well, I don't want to be distracted here, so. All right, so what is it? It's the ability to adapt to stressful situations and having some kind of habit, some kind of skill that allows you to sort of bounce back when you're having a difficult challenge. So that's where we're headed. And there's a whole new area of research called positive psychology. Some of you may or may not have heard of that, but it's basically, you think of psychology, people are always looking at the negative side, of things, but it's really about 1999 this officially got started, this whole area. And one of the things they're looking at is emotional resilience, personal strengths. What is it about people who can sort of go with the flow, and sort of do what's got to be done, sort of manage the situation at the moment? And there are different specific things, but what they all have in common is something about who you are or what you do on a regular basis that generates a positive emotional state within you. And so for some, spirituality alone can do this. Religion, your belief system can generate this. My brother is president still of the Blues Society in Detroit. He will travel to Mississippi at the drop of a hat for a blues festival. And so there's a lot of different things, but there's all kinds of research that your sense of humor is especially good at doing this. And even though it abandons you usually when you need it, when you're someone who can find the light side of something that the kids are doing, it helps pull you out of that negative place and put it a more positive. And we'll come back to that in a minute. So you'll hear me say this in different, the three programs I'm doing here today, that it's really our biological heritage. Because, by the way, there's several programs focusing on play here, one way or the other, at this conference. And that's the way you'll be hearing me talking about humor. It's just another form of play. It's mental play, play with ideas, just as children's play is their biological heritage, your own when you were a child. You don't have to teach kids to play, right? It's who we are. It's how they learn, and we'll get into that briefly here in a minute, too. But humor is a form of play. So humor is also your biological heritage. It's here for reasons that we'll talk about. So the bottom here, it's a reminder for me to say that if I were to pay every one of you, given that you're not overpaid, $25 for everything you find on a daily basis and you have to be honest, that's really funny about what your kids are doing and what your kids are saying, you'd find some funny stuff going on, right? Because there'd be a payoff. Well, there's no payoff in cash here, but the payoff is what it does for your mood on managing your own mood on a daily basis. And the reason for this image here is that there's good research. I'm sorry, I have to be over here to sort of look myself. Sorry, I'm blocking for you. And so we know that most people carry around the negative for longer. Whether you're anxious, you're upset, you're frustrated, it's hard to let go. We carry it around. You might carry it around for days, certainly a good part of the day. And positive emotions, it's like it's fleeting. Oh yes, that was really great. And so, but then something else happens and you're dragged down again. So that's why it seems silly to say this, but the research suggests that because of that, it's harder to let go of the negative and the positive sort of disappears on its own, that you need like 3 times as much as what the research suggests. But in general, so you need some tools to bring positivity on a daily basis. And I call this bounce back ability. There are some days that you have no trouble bouncing back, that just, because you've got some skills that you've been doing this a while. But then there are other days that you know how a regular tennis ball bounces. No matter how hard you try, you just can't quite pull it back together. And during COVID, you've had more days like this. It's how you cannot, no matter what you do, you just you can't bounce back and be the person you were just maybe an hour ago, 2 hours ago. So that's where humor again comes in, because it's a tool that can on the fly sort of pull you out of this. And so one of the reasons that this benefit seems like it's arriving is, there's an area of the brain, it's called, it doesn't matter what it's called, but if you wonder, it's called the nucleus accumbens, deep in the brain. It's a pleasure center in the brain, and when you do like MRI studies, you can tell that this particular area is the same area that's activated in response to sex, cocaine, methamphetamines. It's a pleasure center in the brain. It's really there to mediate physical pleasure. This area of the brain is engaged in response to humor. So that's in terms of the feel-good side, all the positivity that comes in. So this has got to be playing a role in one way or the other in why that's the case. I've not done a Cancer Survivors Day celebration for about 2 or 3 years now, but I have, in the past several years, usually done, usually it's in first Sunday in June, not Sunday, first week of June. And there's hospitals who have cancer programs, they have Cancer Survivors Day celebration. So it's a special event for family members of survivors getting together. And so my focus here is on the importance of them keeping their sense of humor. And when people hear I'm doing a program for cancer survivors, I will sometimes literally see their jaw drop like, how can you laugh at that? There's nothing funny about cancer. I'm sure there are people in this room who have dealt with cancer at this point. But funny things can happen as a result of the cancer or as a result of the treatments. And so this is a true story. This is a Cancer Survivors Day program in Utah. I was in Provo, Utah, and this woman came up afterwards, and she told me that this is exactly what she said. She'd had breast cancer. She had a double mastectomy, and so she had 2 prosthetic breasts. And one day, this is three days after she was back home, and she lived in a house in the suburbs of Provo, and so she went to get her newspaper. This is like 15 years ago. We still had newspapers. And so she bent down to pick up her newspaper. One of her breasts popped out. And the family dog, thinking this was a new toy, grabbed it and ran out in the yard with it. And she chased him and said, "You come back here with my breast. You give me my breast." And suddenly she stopped. In the middle of the yard, she looked around to see if any of the neighbors were up that early. And to her great relief, nobody else was up that early. But as she thought about what she was just shouting out loud for the whole neighborhood to hear, she realized that's what had been missing in her life. Not just, since her surgery, but since she heard those 3 words. Some of you have heard those 3 words. You have cancer. From that point onwards, the place where, that playful side of you that all the kids have disappeared. And so she was determined to not let a day go by from that point onwards without having some laughter in her life. So my mission here is to let you know that there's not as much on the line maybe as in this case, but it's just as important for you as it is for her. So the question is, how do you get this boost yourself? So The focus. Well, have any of you ever known someone who maybe... I see people starting to point fingers. So you want to be sure that that's not you, but there are days like that. So what I'd like to do, I'm going to just be thinking about, and the question is, can you think of anything that's happened, something that's done, and everybody's, you've been working the last week, right? Yeah. So in the last few days, is there anything you can think of? It was really funny to you. You may or may not have laughed out loud, but it occurred to you. That's the key. And so let me just give you a few. These are things, when I ask people, like yourself, to just give me examples, these are things people said. So, and I'm leaving a keyword out, see if you can sort of anticipate what you said. So a 3-year-old wanted to go to kindergarten like her big sister, but said she couldn't because she had to go to oh, it's not. So it's pretty school. She misstated preschool. She'd heard about preschool. Sister was going to preschool. She wanted to go, and she said she wanted to go to pretty school. That's my son Zachary, who's so he's now 24. When he was about 3, we were going to visit his grandparents in Nebraska, Omaha, and where my wife's from. And so he had to go to the bathroom. So it was a public bathroom at the airport. And so Philadelphia Airport, so he wanted to do it himself. And so he had to sit down. So he was in the stall, and said, no, in this case, it wasn't so much what he said, it's what someone else said. And so I was sitting in the stall next to him, and I didn't hear anything, for a while, and I said, Zach, you need a hand? And I immediately heard a deep voice from the stand-up urinal saying, no. And then footsteps hurrying out the room. This is a true story. I know you can see why I never forgot that. So a 4-year-old, I'm sorry, there's the preschool. In the springtime, a teacher took her kids to a local farm. A peacock was displaying his plumage. We've been talking in class about things we see outside that tell us it's spring. So a 4-year-old said to me, look, Miss Ellen, the peacock is blooming. So that was sort of clever and fun at the same time. We discussed dinosaurs the previous week. During a class discussion of the solar system, the next week, a child shared with the group that there are blank in outer space. So it makes total sense, the confusion. So some of the time, the things that are going to be funny to you, the child's not trying to be funny, but there's just a kind of confusion. And I have had someone at a conference like this that actually came up to me afterwards and said, well, that's really not appropriate because you're laughing at the child. But for people who do what you do, most of you are not going to be in that frame of mind. This is like an endearing quality because you can appreciate the confusion and where it's going. So just these are the kind of things that are just going on, on a day-to-day basis. It's a matter of sort of mentally being more aware of them and appreciating them in terms of what it does for your mood. So it was the first day of the new school year, and I was taking attendance and reading each child's name from my student folder. As I called out Tyler's name, he was amazed that I knew it, this being our first circle together. I also told him I knew his last name, which really blew him away. Well, I had to have fun with this, so I told him I even knew his parents' names and his address. I'm telling him his address, he was incredulous. His response was priceless. He said to me with excitement in his voice, Miss Carroll, you must be psychotic. Instead of psychic. 4-year-old said to her mother, is that makeup so you don't look old? Because you don't look old. Your face is still... I'm just leaving you a second. Straight is what she said. In response to, if you could be any animal for a day, what animal would you want to be? And I want to be a bird, so you can probably guess this. Yep. Poop on cars. Listen, that happened to me once. I never forgot a bird pooping on you. Anyone ever have that happen to them? Yes. In flight? Yeah. You don't ever forget that, do you? No. In my case, I was like 17 and outside, and I wore glasses, for distance at the time. And it actually, amazing aim, it actually hit here, went down my cheek, inside the glasses. So lucky it didn't go right into the eye, but so a kindergartner was asked to tell a story of what he would do if he were a raccoon. Among other things, he said, I would eat the farmers. How do you make a tissue dance? Put a little. How many of you have heard kids say this? See, a lot. Well, it's probably like 12 hands or so went up. But it's everyone in the country is someone has heard this. It's put a little. What's the answer? Put a little boogie in it. This is actually my wife is like a reading interventionist. She works with kids anywhere from, K through sometimes, fourth grade or so, who are having reading difficulties. It turns out there's, especially these days, more and more kids who are having reading issues, not dyslexia, but reading difficulties of one problem or another. So this is what my wife does. And this one, a 5-year-old said, Amy, you look like Goldilocks. The sun was shining on my hair. I felt wonderful when he said that. I must have had a surprised look on my face because he said, no, you really do. You look like an old Goldilocks. And so kids were taking turns standing in front of the class saying what day and season it is. And each day a new child would be asked to do this. A boy says, Tuesday, January 7th, 2017, and the season is winter. No, it's flu season. Get it? So I was talking to some of you just at my table over in the student center a bit ago about, so it's really on average about age 7 that kids really get these. They start telling these kind of double meaning jokes before that. But if this was a spontaneous thing, so that's, and girls are usually doing this ahead of boys. Of course, most of our women in the room, so you know that, right? So, all right. So what I'd like you to do is now think about, what I said at the very beginning before I started that. Can you think of anything? So here's the test. So we're, pair up with someone either beside you and try to make it a twosome. If it's a threesome, that's okay too. And each of you share something, if you can, just with the other two. And we'll just take a couple of minutes to do that. And the reason for that is that's the thing I'm suggesting you want to be doing on a regular basis, because that builds the habit of doing it. It's not just seeing it, but if you start sharing it when you get a chance, when you get home or with a colleague, someone you work with, that makes it just pop right up. You don't have to be trying to look for it. It'll just pop up because it's sort of up on your radar now. So we'll just take 2 or 3 minutes and do that. And go ahead now and just choose your own partner. Oh, sorry. Okay, if I could have your attention again. Yeah, pardon? Well, I want to move on to other things. So if I could have your attention. Actually, this is really exciting because you can't stop. That's a good sign. It's the most engaged I've seen people get in doing this. Is this mic on? Is this mic working now? All right, if I could have your attention back here again. One thing I want to say. So I have to tell you, so I've done this quite a few times. This is the most engagement I've ever seen, in doing this because you couldn't stop. And so that's really good. I mean, that's really a positive sign to me. Everybody seemed to have no difficulty of thinking of something, and you fed off each other, right? And so if you have a colleague that you work with, that you see occasionally a part of the day, if that's the way it works, how many of you have someone in the room that you work with? If that's the case, you have each other, and you already know what all this is about. And so use each other when you have an opportunity like that. And so you're sort of helping support each other in terms of elevating, at least just for a brief moment. It doesn't take long. How many of you heard something that you think the whole room should actually hear? Anybody? Okay, so let me let me give you this so actually everyone can see it.
I have a big mouth.
It's being recorded too.
So we had a 4-year-old last year, and I'm laughing. She came up and told us that her vagina hurt.
That's right, there it is.
And it was very difficult not to laugh.
But see, there's the case where, yes, you wouldn't want to be laughing because that could be experienced as laughing at me. So, but you got the important part, right? Up here. So who else? Yeah. And really, so part of what I'm trying to do is reinforce here the idea of just talking about it with someone.
There was a 2-year-old who every day would say, we'd ask him, what are you going to do when you get home? I'm going to go see Uncle Bobo or Uncle Jenkins every single day. And we had no idea who Uncle Jenkins was. Not one clue. Parents had no idea. They were like, is there a ghost in the house? What's going on? And literally she would say what she was going to do with this uncle. She had plans. She was making
the build up coming in out in the room. People are going in all kinds of directions here.
And then just one day he went home. So that was her imaginary friend for a very long time. And we would go through family history with the parents. Is there a grandma? Yeah. Is there somebody you've heard? Nothing. And so this person just had an awesome stranger for a while.
That's very cool. So that wasn't where you expected to wind up, right? With that, but that's a delightful story. So there's a lot of different ways that can come, but it's the same positive, delightful experience. Anybody else while I'm over here? Yeah.
while talking to her, and she was sharing how she works with the babies. So when other children come and see her through the window, they say hi, everything is good. But if she steps out of the classroom, they're like, you know, like scared behind them. And that kind of triggered my memory, because we just had a child, he's 2 years old. And by the time that the mom came and picked him up, I was in my office, in my assistant teacher's office. And then he comes and he just stares at us. And I'm like, oh, okay, goodbye. And he's like, and I'm like, what does that mean? I'm like, yeah, that's my office. And he kept looking at me and saying, no, you go over there. So he's just directing us where to go because we're not in the right place.
Right.
So it was super cute.
You don't belong here.
Exactly.
Well, someone else just raise their hand here. Did I imagine that? Oh, you were scratching? Yeah. All right, so in any case, that's, yeah. You can sort of see how this works. You know, if you have an ongoing, when it's appropriate, just casual, just on the fly conversation like this, what it can do for your frame of mind.
I'm a student intern, and I went to my placement the other day for the first time, and my teacher was introducing me to one of her last year students. And she said, yeah, this is the student that's going to be in my classroom. And the girl turns and she looks at me and she goes, you're in 3rd grade?
Wonderful. All right, so that's the whole focus of that, is cultivating that habit. Let's see if we can get this mic back. And so, sorry, go back now. So this is a suggestion starting Monday, to start actively looking for things that kids are doing and saying, and put it on the front burner for a while. And the reason for that is that it's just like what we did now. You only have to do this like for a week or so, and then it's automatically in you. And then it starts working without any effort, you know, at all on your part. So I suggest set a goal. You'd make up your own goal of some number of things every day. And the suggestion here is to, it's a little teeny red light, is write a brief note so you can remember it at the end of your day. You have a lot on your plate, a lot of things to do, so you don't have extra time. A child's name and just a brief comment that summarizes what the child said, and it will allow you to pull the whole thing out of memory. And so we've already done this here, but if it doesn't work out for you for any reason, like on the fly in your classroom, to have someone else to be talking to about this, have a partner that you speak to regularly, someone who does the same thing you do. Could be, you know, in the same building, but you just don't have the opportunity to talk. But have a telephone partner. Again, that achieves the same thing. Having a regular conversation, you know, helps build a habit if you're not able to do it just with someone you have regular contact with. So I've already said this here, and that's the whole reason for doing what we were just doing. And this, now this is another reason for asking you to write, it's actually the main reason, in addition to helping you remember it and get the habit of noticing, if you keep track of this over the period of months, you know, so you have some kind of book that you start with. Each child has their name, and you just write briefly down what the kids said over the course of a year. You'll have a bunch of examples. Parents, and you give it to parents. You know, maybe you could do it, you know, as at Christmas time. It doesn't have to be that. Maybe at the end of the year, but they will treasure it. They will keep it. They will not throw this away. Things that their child said, and what that does is also helps them start maybe appreciating it more than they have been along. If you have a website, and then you can also you probably want to keep this anonymous, you know, like a 4-year-old, you know, call it the Humor Corner. How many of you have a website that that you work with. So most of you don't have that. So a few of you do. But it's just something for parents to get them also to be looking at your website more often. So I didn't ask you to do this on the fly, but but we'll do something just in a few minutes that'll give you another opportunity to talk about impact of laughter here. So I suggest you start thinking of humor as like a stress deodorant. So for some of you, like one application in the morning might get you through the day, but given what you've been through, given what you've been through the last few years, you know that, well, you never quite know. You might need repeated applications. And so this is a kind of stress deodorant that we're talking about. So that's the end. We can actually turn that screen off, Ron, if you're back there. So one of the great things about kids is that kids are in, oh, that's right, we do it here, not there. That's the mic settings back there. So as the kids are in close touch with, I think, is the basic foundation for your sense of humor. And it's just that basic playful attitude, that sense of fun. And so to go in another way, put you in touch with with this, I want to play a game that's actually, it's a kid's game. It's called Simon Says. Everybody knows Simon Says, right? So the rules are simple for Simon Says. You do whatever I ask you to do as long as I say Simon Says first. If I don't say Simon Says, don't do it. So you won't have any problem with that, right? All right. Okay, so, all right, so Simon Says the game is starting now. So we'll start off with something really simple. So first of all, just everyone, well, let's all stand up to do this first. Oh, that was impressive. That doesn't happen very often. So that's two things that don't happen very often in this room. So yeah, I'm being honest at that. There's always a certain percentage. All right, Simon Says we'll all stand up to do this. This can only mean that you must really have that sense of play active within you. So, all right, we need to do, I see some of you stretching, so we need some. So Simon Says for everyone to raise your hands in the air. All right, and you can stretch if you want at the same time. Now, let's clap your hands twice. See, that didn't take long. Now, normally, Simon Says you can put your hands down. Normally, the rules are if I get you out, you're supposed to sit down. But Simon Says everyone stays standing no matter how many times I get you out. So, all right, now you're going to be sitting a lot today, so we need some physical activity. So just right in place at your chair, just want everyone to just jump up near a little bit. Well, she likes to exercise a lot anyway. Right, all right, so Simon Says for everyone, then jump up in the air right at your chair. I didn't say to come down. I did. Oh, that's cheating. I discovered a wonderful, silly thing to do. I call it loose lips, and it looks like this. And it's really powerful if you've had a tough day. If you just do this. Now, you can do this in different ways. You can do it with your vocal cords, or silent. You can let your own personality come out as you do this. So, want everyone in the room to do loose lips together. I'm not surprised. She's in the front row. I've been watching her. Do you work with her?
No. I'm here all by my itty-bitty self.
Oh.
I know her.
Oh, okay. So, but I was going to ask that person if they're surprised, because I think she's really good at going with the flow. Just go with it, right? So, yes. All right. So, yes, all right. So Simon Says we'll all do loose lips together. And I like her formal style. Relaxed, actually. So now, this one's tricky. You've got to pay close attention to this one. Simon says to take your index finger and thumb and put them in a circle like this. Right? No problem. Now Simon says to take your index finger and thumb and press it against your chin. Tight against your chin. For all of you over here, is this a chin? This is not a chin. Half of the room does not understand where the chin is. And Simon says you can put your hand down. So it just goes to show you sometimes, in fact, kids will be doing what you do and not necessarily what you ask them to do. All right, last dance with this. So what I'd like you to do is, again, have a partner, a threesome or a twosome. It works best with a twosome if possible. Without touching that person, without saying anything to them, I want you to do something to make them laugh or at least smile without touching them, without saying anything. Just do something spontaneous. And Simon says, go ahead and do that now. Okay, Simon says the game is over. Give yourselves a hand just for being silly. So that's it. Oh, you can. Simon says you can have a seat. And again, the reason for doing that is just, there's all kind of things. It's that spirit of fun, that spirit of play that can show up. And so anything that you do, no matter how it shows up, with it's finding the thing kids are doing or engaging with kids themselves in some kind of silly activity like that, is the whole focus of what I'm talking about in terms of boosting resilience. So I haven't asked anyone yet about this. How many of you have a good sense of humor? Just you think about it. Raise your hand if you do. I said, yeah. How many of you have a good sense of humor? That's what I. Or was that part of your? She had me going there, didn't she? Did she really not hear that? Or see, if that was the case, that's real. That's what I'm talking about here. Is if spontaneously, I'm sorry, what did you say? And she had her hand up as she was saying. So, all right, so not many people raised their hands. So what about, isn't that what it means to have a good sense of humor? Just to go with the flow? How about telling jokes? How many of you are really good at telling jokes? There's only like 3 or 4 or 5 hands. Isn't that what it means to have a good sense of humor, to be a good joke teller? See, I don't think so, especially in terms of getting the benefits that we're talking about. The benefits are much stronger if you become someone, or you sort of develop the habit of looking for and finding, or even, you don't have to actively look after a while, but start noticing just the funny things that are going on around you. That's really the key in terms of getting the resilience benefits that we're talking about. And we're mainly, women in the room, and that's not women's style in general, right? Women's there are great women joke tellers, better than a lot of men, but women's style is much more, you're not going to believe what happened to me today. And tying into some kind of personal situation. And so, just something I just popped into my mind is I was going to a conference. I used to live in North New Jersey. I live in Delaware now. And I was going to a speaking engagement, and it was actually in New York. It's sort of not far from where LaGuardia Airport is. There's a traffic circle there, and there's something weird going on in this traffic circle. I went in there, and I had to hit my brakes because there was a guy in the traffic circle backing up. Cars are honking their horns. I mean, it's New York. A certain digit came out of the car, you know, that you can imagine. And so it's a circle, right? He missed his turn. And so he was trying to, you know, get to the point where he could take his right turn as he wanted to. And so that made my day, you know. It's because it's not something you expect to see. I've never seen it before. So it's just a spontaneous thing that occurred. You know, in my, so this doesn't have to involve kids all the time. I'm just talking about being on the lookout in general. And so when I lived in New Jersey, I had the rules in New Jersey, you know, for state inspection, you have to have your car inspected every so many years. And there are local inspection stations around. And the one in Montclair, where I lived, you know, it's a small one, and it was a long line. Cars backed up sort of around the block, single line waiting to get in. It was just one place. And I was behind a woman who, she was just, you'd have to go up a little hill and then into this place. She was the next car in line, and something happened. It had to be a bee of some kind. It was summer, you know, flew in her window. She was panicking, and I could see her. She took a shoe off and sort of, it landed right sort of a certain part in the middle under the rearview mirror. She just slammed it with whatever it was she had. The windshield, she hit it so hard, and it was hard enough something. Windshield had little streaks of shattered window. So the funny thing, and it was part of it, you had to be there kind of situation. It was, she couldn't back up. She couldn't get out. She had to go through. So the guys, you know, yep, come on ahead. And so she pulled up, and they're looking at each other. She thinks she can pass inspection with that? Because they hadn't seen it happen. It just happened a moment ago. So it's being on the lookout for things like that. And what about laughter? How many of you have had a really good belly laugh in the last, yesterday? Let's say, did you work yesterday with kids? With yesterday, how many of you can remember having a real belly laugh yesterday? All right, that's not many hands. Let me just check with Heather on one thing. Is it all right if we do some remedial work here? Because there's, and we've seen all this playfulness, but there's really hasn't been a lot of laughter going on. So is it all right if we do some? So, all right, so what I want to do is relearn how to do belly laughter. In fact, I guess we can, since I'm down here, we can do it. So I just need some volunteers. She's not the only one, but you notice from my point of view, I could see as soon as I said that, people, oh, she'd be good. Bring her with you. Bring her with you, right? You're too tall? Okay, actually, come. You don't have to raise your hand. Just come on down. We got room for 7 or 8 people. I thought you would. Yes, you are.
Me too.
How's that?
Me too. Should I take my heels off?
Yes. All right. So now we don't have any men in the room, do we?
Yes. Yes, we do. There's right there.
Right.
Sorry for pointing at you.
There you are. I remember you. Why don't you come up too as a? I started to say a token male, but that didn't seem appropriate. So, all right. So listen. So we're all going to be. What we're going to do is we're going to. Now you know why I could see this inner from the beginning, and that's a good thing. So we're going to break laughter down into 5 basic steps because there are only about half a dozen hands that went up a minute ago. So basically, step number 1 is really simple. This is not Simon Says. So we're all going to be doing this together. It's just a smile. It looks like this. That's good. And we have. One with a little style to go with it. And it gets more complicated as we go along. Step number 2 is to raise. By the way, you didn't have to put your. You didn't have to put your mask down so we could see your smile. We know you're smiling. Oh, okay. You can, step number 2 is to raise your eyebrows and squint a little bit. Add that to step number 1. And what we get looks like this. Wait, did you? Oh, you got it. Now you're looking really relaxed, but you didn't get that, did you? Because we don't want anyone falling behind. So, oh, what the? She doesn't make it. This is an advanced step, the crying part. So. Now, we're not ready for that yet. Step number 3 is actually, I have to tell you, not that interesting all by itself. I call it the lower jaw drop. You will recognize it in yourself on some of the tough days at the end of the day. You've had a tough day with your kids. Looks like this. But not so interesting, right? How was your day? So, but when you add it to the first 2 steps, it becomes much more interesting. So we're going to put all 3 of those together, and what we get looks like this. So step 4. Now
What more can I be?
an oh my has been called. You think we've gone far enough? So actually, when you're having a real belly laugh, there's some muscle changes that are going on, right? For example, if it's hard to tell on your own self, on your own body, that this. But when you're having a real belly, those muscles are contracting, relaxing, is this kind of thing going on? And so, but if you put your hand. That's why I wanted to have a male up here. I'll simulate it.
It's okay. You're good.
If you put your hand on someone else's stomach while they're having a real belly laugh, you'll feel this kind of thing, tightening and relaxing. And so what we're going to do is we're going to tighten all those muscles and then add that to the first 3 steps. And you guys will maybe have a little more trouble because you're sitting down. So we're going to tighten all those muscles, and what we get looks like this.
Reminds me of something else.
It's when he gets down.
So we're jumping ahead. So what's the next step going to be? What's the last? But we've sort of got the laughter, the ha. So yes, all right, she's already doing her eyes. And so yes, that is a bonus, the crying. Actually, that's true. The reason some of it we cry, so laughter stimulates the lacrimal glands, causing tearing to occur. That's why we sort of have that laugh. It's not necessarily an emotional thing. So we are going to do. Are you coming down till you can be found? Oh, okay. Right. So we're going to just jump right. We're going to do 20 seconds or so of nonstop belly laughter. Don't worry about the fact there's just nothing to laugh at. If you notice someone next to you having trouble, do it as ever is necessary to get them going. So we're just going to throw ourselves into it and start laughing.
Is snorting extra credit?
I'm sorry, what?
Is snorting extra credit?
Yes, extra for snorting. All right, give them a hand for being brave and coming up here. Thank you. So, all right, so what I'd like you to do.
I gotta do this. I gotta fill her belly.
Oh, it's a jelly belly.
There you go. That's also the first time I've ever had someone else come up and say, could I feel her belly? So what I'd like you to do now is pay attention to any physical changes you notice going on in your body or difference in the way you feel, and just shout out from wherever you are, and I'll repeat it for the recording. What do you notice that's different relative to before? I'll listen over here first and then go over there. Her cheeks hurt. We had the same thought. That's exactly why I turned around and wasn't sure what she meant by that. That's right. So I've had people tell me, I can't remember the last time I had a real let go belly laugh like that. And you're using, these muscles right here, and so they might be a little bit sore, and that's the reason for that. And what else do you notice? You get more positive. Just a positive feeling, in your, and it's like a feel-good feeling, right? Remember what I said about the pleasure center, the reward center, a dopamine-based reward center in the brain? So that's part of where that comes from. Any of you ever heard of laughter yoga? So there's a guy, I know this guy, he's from India, a physician from India. His name is Madan Kataria. And so he started in the 1990s. In India, there's long-standing yoga traditions of different types. And some of them involve just like breath work, pushing, and well, that's the way a chimpanzee does it. That's wrong. Do you know the chimps laugh? It sounds sort of like this. And this is a little bit of an aside, but if some of you have heard about Coco the gorilla, or any signers here? Anyone does sign language? With Robin. So I had a chance to do what Robin did. A long time ago, when I visited Coco when she was still like a juvenile at Stanford University. I had a connection there. And so I was dealing with the question of, are we the only critters that's capable of humor, and how do you decide that? And for me, it's all based on your cognitive abilities. What humor is once you understand, and this is the way it works with kids, the way things are, the way things work in the world, you get pleasure out of messing it up in some way. Saying the word wrong, show me your nose, so that's what I wondered, would the original signing apes were chimpanzees, and Washoe the chimp. So the bottom line is, without any details, they play with their language system. Once they've mastered the language system, the same way kids do, they will give you the wrong answer. I was invited to come in with Coco and maybe play like Robin did, and this is before Robin was invited. And Penny Patterson, the human, who was working on her PhD with Coco at the time, asked Coco, she was basically in a trailer, in a cage, in a trailer on Stanford campus. And so I was with a guy who was a faculty member at Stanford. He didn't have much hair, and this was actually the late 70s. And so I had, I can't do an afro, but I had hair and I had a beard. I looked a little more like a gorilla. He was pretty much bald. And Coco signed something to me. I don't speak sign language. And you never forget the experience. Coco's looking at me. We're through the bars that far. She's scrutinizing me. It's not a blank stare. She asked me something, said something to me. I didn't answer. And finally, she points to the guy next to me and said, he should come in. He's stupid. Meaning he doesn't know anything. They don't have a sign for stupid. But you don't ever forget the experience of having a gorilla telling you you're not very bright. And so the reason people tried to teach them vocal language early on, like chimpanzees especially, in their homes. They worked on it, but chimps can't make utterances like, so I take a deep breath of air, and then I can talk and talk and talk, and I'm not stopping. I'm still pushing air out and pushing air out, and I'm still pushing air out as I talk until I run out of air. I take a deep breath and I push air out. They can't do that. So it's sort of in and out, and it shows up with their laughter that way. We have laughs that, however it shows up in you, but for them, they can't keep pushing out and interrupting the airflow, and so it's like, you've probably met some men like that, right? So, all right, in any case, that was a little aside. So what else did anyone notice? Sorry, I got distracted there. Energy. The energy level, right? That's important. You all know what happens to your energy level on certain days, right? Some days are really challenging. You are down here. Anything that you can do. So it ties in with the importance of, first of all, noticing it. If it's something where you're able to share the laughter with the kids, it elevates your energy and alertness. And that in its own right is important for being effective in what you're doing. Anything else? And then I'll talk about. Now, no one's mentioned the one that I usually hear. It starts with an R word, a feeling you notice afterwards. Relaxed. You know, there's a general principle of exercise physiology. Sort of, you work muscles and then you stop working them. Like we were working them in the parts that involved in laughter, and you stop working, they tend to relax. And so that happens to skeletal muscles. By the way, what happens for especially like say you're working with preschoolers, anywhere in the 3 to 5 year range, something happens and those kids, a bunch of them, start laughing really hard. What will you see some of them do before long? Getting what? Silly things, but falling down is actually, I heard, and some, yeah, but especially they'll fall down laughing in terms of the impact of the relaxation effect. Why do young kids sometimes fall down when they're laughing hard? Well, some people, they're not very tall, it's not far. But I think, preschoolers, young children are good at sort of going with the flow. If those muscles are relaxing, they go down. Most of you have learned not to do that. But yeah, so you can't get back up. And so, in any case, so that's really one of the key benefits also, because stress management, that's one of the key. There are a lot of different techniques for stress management, but muscle relaxation and easing of psychological tensions is a key part of most of it. There was this one woman in terms of stress. So she was really having a special day. It was 4th of July. She was inviting friends over, neighbors over, and she was making a lot of food. She's making 4 cakes. And she had a mix master, and she's making the batter. She tasted the batter, and she swallowed the spoon. She called her doctor up and said, Doctor, I just swallowed a spoon. What should I do? And the doctor said, sit down and don't stir. Now, what kind of joke was that? A pretty bad joke, right? So it's basically the reason we groan at jokes like that, is that it's really what level of humor. It's kids' humor, right? That's what kids start at the age of 7 on average. Sometimes girls ahead of boys with that. is that they understand double meanings. But the reason we groan at it is it's really easy to understand it. You know, once someone gives it to you on a silver platter, tells you any double meaning joke. But when you think of it, it's harder, right? So it's actually, so in the workshop, you know, that I'll be doing on tomorrow, actually, a part of the focus will be just learning to play with language. Not so much that you want to keep everybody in the aisles laughing at your class, because they won't laugh as much if it's this kind of joke. But on the other hand, the fact that you can come up with that means that it does work for you in terms of the whole mood management thing. Now, how many of you know who George Carlin is? So some of you probably have to have hair this approaching this color. So, I mean, he's not even alive, I don't think, anymore. I forget when he passed away a few years ago. But he used to have this routine in which he talked about his stuff. His comedy wasn't everybody's cup of tea, but he talked about when he traveled, he would take his stuff with him. And so, but he was talking about physical stuff, you know. And I suggest to you that everyone in this room has some emotional stuff that you're carrying around. Like baggage is a term for it. So I'm going to say that this chair represents that stuff. And there's all kind of stuff. Yeah, so let's say that, well, let's say a good part of this chair, yeah, is actually what's still lurking in our memories from COVID. You know, all these possibilities. You know, and are any of you thinking about that these days? I mean, so we're not really concerned about it at this point, right? We sort of feel like we're past it, but you keep hearing about these variants. So but that's the way it used to be, and it could be coming down the road, so there's uncertainty about that. And then there's the kids that, kids for what something came up, and kids actually started fighting, hitting each other, you know, or there's some kind of, they're doing some kind of damage, you know, in the school. So all this stuff you're carrying around, and eventually this is what you look like. You've got your stuff hanging out, and actually, for some of you, you know, this is maybe one of your better days, yeah, because this is, what's wrong with that? That's a typical day. What's that? Oh, is this better? So now I'm fine. I'm not really showing that I have any baggage I'm carrying around at all. I'm carrying it with style. No, so actually, for some of you, more typical is maybe a day like... This is a day that you don't want to have, but... Sorry. It's easy for you to say. And that shows up. Well, you notice sometimes people might be saying to you, what are you in such a good mood about? Can't you see what kind of day we're having here? So how many of you think that you have no trouble providing quality education when you're having a 3-chair day? And so, actually, these are heavier than I thought. They brought them over from the Student Center. And so, but that's the way it is, right? And so that's the importance of developing some tools. And you think your kids don't realize when you're having a bad day? They know. If you have colleagues that sometimes, you know, are teaching too, sometimes, isn't Miss Johnson coming in today? I would like to work with her. So it's all about managing your mood and your frame of mind. And so that's the key. And so, oh, it's heavier than I thought. Did you catch this? But have you noticed that sometimes, you don't know what to do. How am I going to how can I improve where I am now? And you decide, want to give yourself, give your baggage to someone else? Sometimes you'll be interacting with people and you've been having a fine day so far, but they're having a tough day, and somehow they get you intertwined in it. And so we don't want to be doing that either. So I'm actually pretty much, all set with what I had to say. Anybody have any questions about anything? So what I'm going to be focusing on, just for those of you who aren't coming to my workshop this afternoon. So children's humor, just the short of this, for those who aren't coming, is basically the whole point is it's built in to kids to get pleasure out of turning things upside down as they understand the way the world works. It shows up when they're learning to call things the show me your nose game. I assume, how many of you have seen this? So you're playing the show me your nose game with a younger child, and it all goes right. Show me your ear, show me your chin, and then show me your eye. And how many of you have seen this? This is the clue. Something's going to go wrong here. You see this mischievous look in their eye. And in my son's case, I was playing this with him, what it was 2.5 or 3. And he pointed to his knee when we did that and had a great little chuckle. So let me leave you with just a couple of, in terms of looking for things, it doesn't have to be something just with kids. I saw a sign in front of a Presbyterian church when I lived in Montclair, New Jersey. It said, it's a big church, so I had 2 sermons. Sermon at 9, Jesus walks on water. Sermon at 11, searching for Jesus. And I've always wondered, did they do that intentionally? Did they not do that intentionally? And I grew up in a Baptist context, and I don't know if you know, so my father was a deacon in the Baptist church. My father's father was a minister in olden times. He rode horseback in southern Missouri, one church to another, because nobody could afford a minister in the country. And I don't remember him being really playful. So in my context, it's just, I think Baptists have come along. I apologize if there's anyone in Baptist here, but it's for some of us, it's just not a lot of things we can joke about. And so that's just a personal experience, and normally I don't comment on that. But so let me just give you 2 examples. One of, so when I lived in Montclair, my supermarket was a what was it? It wasn't a Pathmark. It was, I forget what it was called. But in any case, I went there, and my drivers, late afternoon, so it was a long line of people waiting. And I have my credit card has my picture on it. And so there was a new, like all the systems for how you swipe your card are different. Do I hold it this way? Do I hold it? Do I swipe at that point? Do I push this button first? So I looked confused, and the cashier, who was a woman probably in her early 20s or something like that, she got impatient and she said, "Strip down and face toward me." So I just looked at her and I said, "Are you sure you want me to do that?" Her reaction was embarrassment, but it made my day. And so in a final thing, and then we'll stop, and so the rules in this particular town in North Jersey were if you're 5 or over, you pay to ride the bus, and if you're under 5, you ride for free. So this mother got on the bus with her daughter, and the girl got on first and sat down, toward the front, and the bus driver says, "Just a minute, little girl, how old are you?" She said, 4.5. And the bus driver said, well, when will you be 5? As soon as I get off this bus. So that's the whole focus here. So, and I can see that this whole conference has really giving special attention to play, which was a wonderful thing. And so my basic advice to you is when you're working with young children, at some point, make it a point to have fun with your kids. You know, look for the light side, share laughter with them when you can. So lighten up just for the health of it. Thank you. And everybody's on a 15-minute break now, right? Or you have some comments?
No, they do. I just want to make sure that, make sure you fill out your green form. I mean, those of you that come to the conference or do your early childhood training, you know to fill that out. If you're virtual, you need to make sure you go into your session feedback and fill that out. That's the same assessment we're doing here in person so that we can issue certificates later today. Again, the next sessions are in here. Those of you that, there's going to be a session in this room, and then the rest of you are going to go down the hall and to the right. Those 2 rooms will be down there. If you're staying in this session, if you could kind of scoot to the center and forward, that'll help with the next presentation and the video that we'll need to be doing. So, all right.